Hello, everybody.
Welcome back to another episode of
A BJJ Marriage, where we talk about our lives as a married jiu-jitsu couple.
Eight, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Dun, da, da, da.
Happy New Year!
Oh, okay, that's what you were doing. I had no idea. I was really just waiting, and I was hoping you were going to speed it up at like the 5 mark, and you didn't, and now you just wasted 10 seconds of our viewers' lives.
Oh my goodness. Well, Happy New Year to everybody except Brittany.
Happy New Year, guys. I hope you had a fun New Year.
Uh-huh.
Happy, healthy, safe, all those fun terms that we now use as a part of our daily wishing to people.
Yeah, that's true.
But anyway, welcome to another episode. I think it's episode 46 today. So that's kind of crazy because so it's a brand new year. We started this in 2021 and we didn't start right away, but we've only missed 3 weeks in total since we started. And they've been just due to vacation and stuff.
Yes.
So we have done about 49 weeks worth of podcasts now so far.
Yes.
Which is kind of crazy. So 3 more weeks and we'll have done it for a year. That's kind of the best way to memorize it, is just know how many we've missed. Sorry that we ruined your routine, guys.
I won't remember how many we missed ever. Yeah. What was your favorite parts of the year?
2021 or 22?
21.
We
podcast-wise.
Oh, podcast-wise? I just thought you meant in general.
Either or.
I was going to make it jiu-jitsu related, but...
Yeah, jiu-jitsu or podcast.
The podcast that I still think I'm most stoked about is the one that we did with all 5 belts.
Mm-hmm.
A conversation with all 5 belts. It was me as the white belt, you as the blue, Dave as the purple, Brett as the brown, and my dad is the black. And that was it was cool to get different perspectives on different things. And it's kind of crazy to just see, that wasn't even that long ago. And we've both leveled up since then. Dave is now a 3-stripe purple belt.
Yep.
And Brett is about to get his black belt next month.
Yeah,
so
that's super cool.
It's kind of wild.
I think that's our most listened to episode also.
Really?
Besides...
The women one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Besides the all-women one that I got invited to and kicked out of at the same time. That was funny. Yeah.
But no, we've had some fun ones. And then I also really liked the one with Jose.
Yeah.
Talking about training in other parts of the U.S.
Yes.
Or Mexico.
Multicultural jiu-jitsu also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, that was cool. And trying to learn jiu-jitsu, but also trying to learn English.
Right. We've had some fun ones too. I mean, just the 2 of us. There's been times that we'll turn off all the recording devices and then we'll just be like, that was a really fun episode. I feel like we barely got into it. The one that we talked about, the third dimension, the stand-up game.
Oh my gosh.
I felt like I could have just kept going and going and going.
Yeah, that was a good episode.
That was probably the one episode that I can remember that I was like, I'm not done.
Yeah, I loved a bunch of the guests that we've had on our show. So thank you everybody that's been on the show so far.
Yes, plenty more to come.
Yes, we've got more guests lined up for next year already, which is super exciting.
Next week we are joined by 2 of our good friends from Fluid. I won't spoil that one yet, but I'm excited for them to be on. So stay tuned for next week to hear a couple more other perspectives.
Yes, we've had about 7,000 listens over the year. So that's a huge win for us. I expected 5 people to watch it once.
Right.
So yeah, good for us.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, it has been fun. My favorite episode, I can't point out a specific episode that I liked more than the others.
No?
But I had a really good time when we did it in Vegas.
Yeah.
Even though I thought that we weren't going to pull it off. We did. We recorded in Vegas. That was a lot of fun.
That was our only non-dressed one.
Yeah.
Because we've only had 2 or 3 no-gi episodes.
Yes.
And the rest have been gi, and then that was the only one that we were in street clothes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was cool.
Let us know in the comments what your favorite episode was.
Yeah.
Or what What stood out to you guys?
We also just really like wearing our gis, apparently. We were going to do a no-gi one today because we just actually finished a private lesson right before this that we were doing a no-gi, and then we decided that
it's cold.
Yeah, it's January, so...
Well, I was cold. It's cold.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. But yeah, talking about private lessons, that was going to be our episode topic for today. Mm-hmm. How private lessons have helped my jiu-jitsu, what she thinks about as private lessons, as a not really taking one. I think that was your first private lesson this morning, right? Mm-hmm. Yes. And also the value of private lessons in general. It's good to talk about.
I've never had an actual private lesson, like, with an instructor. I mean, I guess I have a little bit of an advantage just because the professor is my dad. So, like, even when we're just, like, having dinner or something, I can bring something up and he'll just talk to me about it. So, yes. But it's not, like, sitting on the mat, him watching what I'm doing and making it better type of thing.
We have definitely had, like, dinners where we, like, go off the table and then someone sits on the ground and then we show something to each other.
Yeah. Well, it's fun because we have a family that trains. So, like, it's him and then it's us. But then it's not only just us. It's Jada, who was on an episode, my sister. And then it's also Ian, which is, he's basically family at this point now, too. And we'll get Ian on here at some point. He's an orange belt at our gym because he's not yet 16. So he's working his way up to blue. But he's probably on the verge of like a 3-stripe white belt if he was an adult at that point. Yeah,
he's good. But he's obsessed with leg locks.
Yes.
And we got to break him out of that until later.
So anyway, he's part of our family now. And
we adopted him.
So whenever we're having dinner, we just pretty much, we try to tone it down about jiu-jitsu because people are still there that do not train. But
they know.
Yeah. So those are not real private lessons, but it does help that your dad is a black belt.
Yeah.
And you can ask him things whenever you're stuck.
And since your dad is also my dad, there have been classes, especially like at like noon or something, where it's just me and one other person. So we basically get a private lesson. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, I've done little like 10-minute things with Mike Coy at the gym before, which is just like a mini private lesson. Like he's definitely helped me make my game better. And then also, I mean, I've worked one-on-one with you in the basement a couple times. Yeah. And what else was I going to say?
She doesn't like learning from me.
It's getting better.
It has gotten way better over the last like year and a half.
It is getting better.
But like when she was like a 2-stripe white belt, and I'd be like, hey, it might be beneficial if you tried doing something this way. Like this is how I... No.
I got it.
I can do it.
I know what I'm doing. I'm a 2-stripe white belt.
Okay, good. Go for it. You got it. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna fight you.
Yeah, but anyway, so I've never actually like had a full-on private lesson. There was one time we sat around with Josh and Megan before too. She's purple and he's black, and the four of us kind of like did a Jeff Glover instructional.
We did a donkey guard drilling.
Yeah, we were watching the BJJ Fanatics Jeff Glover donkey guard special, and just the four of us worked on that. But that again wasn't like a private lesson. So today was my first time.
Yeah.
And it was pretty cool. So, you want me to go into it? You want to go into it?
Well, go into what you thought about private lessons before you had yours today. So when you hear, like, the term private lesson, how do you feel about it? Like, if someone's like, hey, we're offering private lessons, do you think you'd want to have one?
Okay, so I actually do get into this discussion a lot, especially with the newer white belts, because I remember when I was first starting out for probably the first year that I was training, and I'm going on 3 this year. So for the first year, whenever someone would bring up, a seminar or a private lesson or maybe drill some extra stuff after class, like just extra time outside of just your normal drilling time and rolling time, I was always like, no, I don't want to. And it's not that I don't think that they're beneficial. Like I knew that they were, which is actually the reason that I didn't want to take them because I was so new that every class felt like a seminar to me already. And I was having trouble retaining everything that I was already learning because it was all so new and so fresh that if I took a seminar or a private lesson and I physically paid this money to do this, I wouldn't retain it. And then I would just feel like it was money wasted. Maybe I'd do it for like a day or two or maybe even a week or so. But then like 6 months later, I knew I wouldn't be using it anymore at that point. Sure. So as a newer white belt, I did not find private lessons or seminars beneficial. But now that I've been training for quite some time, I do find them a lot more beneficial, and they're almost motivating too, because it's like, oh, well, I know how to do this, but you're going to make it better type of thing.
Right.
And so that's how I felt about it, and now I would like to dive into them a little bit more, I guess.
Sure. Explore it a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I get what you're saying about, like, when you're in class or open mat, you're always learning new stuff, and things keep popping up, and you're like, holy shit, I've never seen that before in my life. And you're like, I don't know what the hell I would do with that, or where to use that, or when to use that, or how to make it work. But it does... Private lessons don't always have to be like, the flashy jiu-jitsu that is shown on highlight reels at Flow Grappling or IBJJF Worlds. That's not what you're going to learn in a private lesson anyways, because those people have been developing their game for so long to get to that point. But what you can learn in private lessons is like what your dad does for question answer class on Fridays. Those are basically mini private lessons. Mm-hmm. Right? But if you're like, I've been finding myself on bottom side control for the last 3 months and I can't get out of it. That's basically everybody's first private lesson class that I've had a class with them like, hey, what do you want to work on today? How do I get out of side control?
Yeah. So that's kind of the benefit of private lessons, though. It is exactly what you said. Like, what do you want to work on? Exactly. It's not so much like we've come in, like I'm talking about the higher belts or whoever's giving the private lesson. It's not like they're just like, okay, we're going to come in and we're going to do this today because this is what I feel like teaching you.
Right.
It's more of you're paying for this service. What would you like to work on? Let's make it better. And that never clicked with me because I always thought that a private lesson was just, all right, I'm going to learn this fancy trick again that I'm never going to try. Yep.
Right. Yeah, that's not really what a private lesson is. Mm-hmm. And if you want to try highlight reel stuff, like I've had a private lesson where they're like, okay, first thing I want to do is flying triangles. And like,
I wonder who that was.
It was a good time.
Yeah.
But they already had a base of jiu-jitsu where they just wanted to play with stuff. And that's totally fine. Private lessons can be your own private drilling time with somebody that can help you dial in what you want to work on. And if you want to do flying triangles, fucking go for it.
Right.
But most people, especially like a no stripe or even a 3-stripe white belt, is going to be like, side control is really tough. Or how do I get out of mount without getting armbarred?
Right.
Or things like that. And the more I teach it and the more I see it, the better I'm able to explain it, which is a benefit of why I love doing private lessons, because it makes me a better teacher. But private lessons in general, yeah, they don't have to be highlight reel stuff. It can be very practical jiu-jitsu, and most of the lessons I have taught have been very practical applications of your regular fundamental jiu-jitsu. Sorry, got some coffee burps, I guess.
Sitting with my shoulders like really close to my ears, and I don't know why. So
you don't want to get choked?
I'm going to try to relax. Have you ever seen that meme where it says, like, take a breath, remove, or take your tongue off of the top of the roof of your mouth, drop your shoulders, and just relax? Because then you're, like, realizing almost all the time, like, you're sitting there and your tongue is on the roof of your mouth, you're like hunched over forward, and you're probably, like, in a really bad posture, and I have to constantly remind myself about that, and just be like, I need to drop my shoulders and posture up and just relax. So, sorry. So if you're doing that,
yeah,
fix your posture.
Yeah. So, yeah, fundamental jiu-jitsu I was talking about.
Yeah.
Like fundamental sitting postures for Brittany.
Mm-hmm. Good.
So,
good things to learn.
Yeah.
I remember when I was like probably a 2 or 3 stripe white belt, I was working on a move with Dave, and at this point I don't remember what the move was, but I remember I was working on it and drilling it, and he was just like, you're doing it right. And I was like, I feel like I look like an idiot. And he was just like, no, you look just fine. And he was like, your problem is that you watch highlight reels of black belts at IBJJF and you think you should look like them, and you're not going to. And that stuck with me so much because I was like, you're right. I am not a black belt at IBJJF. I am a 3-stripe white belt at Fluid Jiu-Jitsu trying to learn this move.
Oh, yeah. That was so funny when today in our private, Charles was like, if you're an acrobat, you don't need to do this. Yeah. But I don't think you guys are acrobats. And I was like, oh. That was funny. But Yeah, you were talking about. Yeah, you're not a IBJJ black belt. I apologize. Oh yeah, that's what brings it to one of my favorite sayings. I probably say it a lot of times in private lessons or when I teach class in general. People are like, "Well, that's so simple. Why would I not have thought of that?" And it's because jiu-jitsu is simple, but it's not natural.
It's not easy. That's the way my dad always says it.
Simple, not easy.
But it's not easy.
Right, but all of the movements that you would do in jiu-jitsu is not a natural movement that you would do for anything else.
Yep.
Outside of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, think about it. If you've been training for 6 months or longer, did you think back to when you first started? Did you know what a sit-out was? Did you know what a thread the needle was? Maybe you guys call it different things, but did you know what side mount was? Like, did you know what any of these things were? And when you tried them out the first time, you probably lost your balance. You probably went the wrong way. You probably didn't know where to put your hands or your feet, for that matter. And then by the time you hit, like, your first stripe, you're like, oh my gosh, I know all these. They're, like, pretty natural to me at this point. And then you see that new person in class who's really watching the instructor, like, okay, what do I do? Where do I go? And then you constantly have to remind yourself, like, oh yeah, these are not natural movements. Now they are.
Like a knee slice pass or a scissor sweep are simple sweeps, right? They start the foundation of everything else, but it's not natural to do.
Yeah, they're learned techniques for sure.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely that. But yeah, and then the deeper you go in jiu-jitsu, it becomes a game of like inches where you tell people like, well, if you're posted out this far, it's going to be really difficult. But if you just bring your arm in just a little bit, or if your elbow's out here, that might work. But if you just bring it to your ribs and then you hear and see the click in their brains, they're like, oh, that would help.
Well, we even had that today in our private lesson.
Yeah.
We were working on leg locks, and we'll get into our lesson in a minute, but we were working on leg locks, and we thought that we had it pretty secure. And then he's like, well, why don't you just bring your left knee up and flare your right knee out? And we're like, okay. And we move it, and we're like, oh yeah, that's way tighter. Yeah. That's way better.
It feels way better. You're very right about that.
And the fact that you could see that over Zoom was pretty impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
It's just working on those little movements to make yourself better at the move that you probably already know. And that's kind of what a private lesson's about.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to also say about private lessons is when you are in class and you see the technique, there's only so much you can share about a technique position-wise and like grips and posture while you're trying to teach it over like 3 minutes so that the whole class can do it.
Yeah.
Right? And if you wanted to teach that position like an entire instructional, you'd get through 1.5 moves in an hour.
Right.
And nobody's going to get it perfect every time you're drilling it or showing it to the class. But that's one huge benefit in private lessons is in the middle of your drill, your instructor will be like, okay, stop, wait, let's readjust this port. Let's get that grip, adjust your posture this way just a little bit, and help you dial in your drills so that way it's done the way that it was intended by the instructor instead of the way that, let's face it, our white belt minds form it in our brain before we understand exactly everything that's going on.
Yeah, and I would say that that's kind of like a disadvantage of being in a class and learning a new technique is that more than likely there's probably not too many people in that class who knows that move expertly. I mean, if you have some black belts, they will. Even the purples and browns will probably be able to help you out a lot. But typically classes are mostly like white and blue belts, from my experience, just traveling around too. And if you see a brand new move and you're trying it, I mean, the chances of the instructor being able to sit there and talk you through every single move after he just showed it while needing to show other people as well is very slim. Yeah,
because the instructor is going to go to the people that need the most help.
Yeah.
And if you're somewhere in the middle, they're going to expect you to figure it out, or they're going to expect you to help somebody that also knows it less than you.
Yeah. That's me. I don't get help anymore. Like in the beginner class, which is fine. Like I obviously don't need it in the beginner class anymore, but when I work with a brand new white belt on beginner days, I just know that my dad, he walks around, he goes and helps like all the people that he needs to, but he doesn't really come and help me.
Yeah, he skips us.
He does. He comes right up to me and all he does is he puts his hands up and he's like, you good? And I'm like, yep, we're good.
Yeah.
But that's the hard
They're getting
part.
inside control, yep.
Yeah. Especially with like big classes too. Like they need to go help the people that really have no idea. But that's again where the disadvantage comes in, because even though I do have that fundamental knowledge and that base, like there still could be a technique that my partner's doing that I can't see or I can't feel, because I am only a blue belt. I'm not a black belt. I haven't done this move thousands and thousands of times. I've done it maybe 100.
Yeah, it could be a simple thing like where your toe is placed.
Yeah. Because I know that there has been times that my dad will walk over and be like, okay, let's see her do that again to my partner. And then be like, okay, well, maybe if you just adjusted this way. And I'm like, well, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I didn't see that because I wasn't watching. And I probably wouldn't have been able to point that out either. Like little tiny things like that.
Yeah. The more you teach, the more you figure out those feelings. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like I have to in 2 weeks.
That's 2 weeks from now?
Yep.
Come to Fluid Jiu-Jitsu on Wednesday night in 2 weeks. Come learn Nogi from Brittany. She's undefeated Nogi grappler.
Stop it!
Well, how many Nogi matches have you lost in competition? None. Whoa! What does that mean? Open challenge.
Okay, speaking of competition, let's say some exciting news.
I believe I'm competing next week, Saturday.
Yep.
Woo! I'm going to go to Chicago Grappling Industries and compete, because after the holidays, it seems that I don't weigh that far from 170, so why not?
Yeah. So he's going to compete at Chicago on January 8th.
Yes.
So next week we will probably dive into that a little bit too with our special guest.
Yes.
And see where their minds are at on competing soon.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, we were talking about learning those little details, and in big classes it's hard to get the attention that you necessarily need in order to perfect and define every move that you're doing. And again, you can get the basics, and typically in class, from what I've seen, what I've learned, it's not even just me, it's just from a general scope of the room, is that people will drill it about 3 to 5 times each, and then they'll just kind of wait until it's time to start the next one. So like 3 to 5 times is really not even diving into what you're doing. It's not getting the reps in that you need to understand what you're doing either. So like going to class is obviously very good for you. You should definitely go and learn and take notes and do whatever you need to do to retain the information that you're being taught. But it's really that repetition and the drilling and the live rolling of practice that is what's going to get you to be better at those techniques, in my opinion.
Yeah. You're talking about in class, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Private lessons also has all of that, but it's like more directed.
Right.
Yeah. And so we were talking about getting that individual attention. Mm-hmm. That's what's huge with private lessons, and having somebody that can watch you do your drills and then every time correct your drill, like after each one.
Yeah. I think the other thing too, and this is coming from someone who just took a private lesson today for the very first time, is you have to go in knowing you're going to mess up. Like, you don't want to, like, it's kind of intimidating, like he said, with getting that one-on-one attention, them watching every single move that you're doing. They're going to correct you. They're going to tell you what you're doing wrong. Mm-hmm. And you have to be open to that criticism, and you have to be willing to change. If you're going to go in there hard-headed with an ego, like, I know how to do this, and then they tell you, well, what if you did it this way? And you're like, why would I do it that way? Then you're probably not going to gain much out of that.
You definitely need a learner's mindset.
Yes. Yeah. So you need to go in there with a humble attitude, in my opinion, too.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Which a lot of white belts don't have.
Well, some do, for sure.
Some do.
Yeah.
But a lot of them are hard-headed, and they're just like, why do I have to do it this way? It's always worked for me this way, type of thing.
Sure. I don't experience that as much when I've been teaching.
Well, they probably don't buy private lessons. Those types of people.
Right. Exactly that, yeah. Yeah. Also depends on how much you've been... Also depends how much you've been beaten by the person that you're getting a lesson from.
Yeah.
Because if someone mops the floor with you, then you'd be like, I would like to learn how to mop the floor with myself.
Yeah.
But if you're like beating up on the person, you're not going to get a lesson from those type of people. Mm-hmm. Which is fine.
So anyway, we had our private lesson today we've talked about him plenty of times before. He's been at both of the fire and water camps that we've been to.
Well, I was going to talk about another lesson too before that.
Okay.
So, the first private lessons I had. So she had her first real private lesson today, mm-hmm. right? I think the first private lesson that I have had was classes where I was the only person that showed up with Mike Coy and Brent, your dad, which was a couple years ago when the gym was still smaller and 6 a.m. classes were newer. So like Ted and I would get private lessons with Mike all the time, which was super helpful. And then also outside of that, we had a private lesson with Jeff Glover, which was super fun.
It was you, Mike, and Jason Bergman.
Yes.
Just 3 of you?
Yes, just the 3 of us. And for like 2 hours, we just picked apart Jeff's brain, random stuff that he would do, and he would show us drills to do stuff and his favorite setups or favorite ways to get in and out of stuff. And that was super awesome to learn from, a world champion on how they move and how they do stuff, which was super fun. And then my other experience with private lessons is teaching them to people that want to expand their mat time, which is super fun. And I've been doing that for about a year at this point. I've been doing private lessons, and I do like anywhere from like 2 to, I think I've done like close to like 10 in a week before, around there. And they're super fun. I love doing it. And like I said, it's not always like flashy stuff that people want to do. It's more like, how do I get out of side control? And then I can teach an entire system of a progression of moves that we can drill specifically, which is super fun.
Yeah, so you've had a lot of experience with private lessons, probably a lot more than an average. I mean, you were a blue belt for the majority of all of that.
Yeah.
And so you are still doing private lessons as a purple belt, obviously, but a majority of what your experience has been as a blue belt, I would say, is a higher majority than most blue belts, in my opinion. But another one that we have not gotten an actual private lesson for, but I know a lot of people like to get them from, is Master Sauer.
Yeah.
Because he is one of those people that you heard me talk about going through those defined details. He's the one to do it more than anyone.
Yeah. He's got the smallest amount of details to share with people.
Yep.
Which is awesome.
But they can be super beneficial. And I know that anyone at Fluid, in my experience, who has worked with Nick in a private lesson, their games have significantly changed. Like, I can definitely tell who works with what. And even, like, you can get that from different instructors, too, because I can tell if I'm rolling with someone who normally goes to a morning class, I'm like, oh, you're a Mike Coy person. Like, you can just feel that difference based on who they're getting their instruction from.
That's true.
So you should probably get a private lesson from someone that you can most relate to. If you don't really like going inverted and doing donkey guard and all of this fancy schmancy stuff on the mat, you probably don't want to work with Jeff Glover. You probably want to work with someone a little bit more slow moving and like more defined in like the pressure aspect rather than the slide around and jump on your feet type of person. But like you probably want to relate to someone who is more like you on the mats in order to get the best experience. Like I was actually a little worried today because I don't do leg locks. So I was like, I don't know how much I'm going to get out of this. Like, what am I really going to do about it? But it was still very cool to see the differences in what I've been doing versus what I can do.
Yes. Yeah, today's lesson was very cool. You want to talk about it? So your favorite leg lock position is?
Saddle.
The saddle. Also known as, what, honey hole? It's not ashigarami.
Ashigarami, that's the other one. But we were working ashigarami today.
We did some ashi also, yes.
Yeah, it's called honey hole. I don't know what else it would be called.
I think it's called like 4-in-1 or something.
I've never heard that.
Oh, never mind.
But I really like saddle. I just found out that it's reaping. I didn't know that. And I'm really glad I figured that out before I competed next and went and started saddling everyone and then got disqualified. But, yeah, so we were working with the ever so famous to us, Charles Harriot.
Yeah.
He, like I said, he was at the Fire and Water Camp the last 2 times that we've been, and he unfortunately will not be at the February one. At least not as far as I know. I know he's not instructing, and I don't think they plan on coming for that one. But he has been a fantastic instructor. He's taught multiple seminars at each camp. I think he taught 4 at the first one and 2 at this last one. And we went to, I think, all of them. And just the way he explains things.
Except for breakdancing, which I was sad I missed.
Yeah, we had something else going on at that time. But he explains things so nicely and so, like, easy to understand, especially for someone like me who doesn't pick up on things just from watching. So he's able to break it down step by step by step. Like, I remember I was actually in charge at the Fire and Water Camp to record everyone who was instructing, and he by far had the longest explanations than everyone. Like, other people would be explaining for like 3 to 4 minutes, and Charles was on like the 10-minute plus mark every time he went through something. But that's good. Like, the stuff that he teaches is complex, and you kind of need it. So
yeah, and he really breaks it down into why you do certain things instead of just like do this.
Yeah,
which is huge.
But basically, he's a fantastic instructor, and we've really enjoyed working with him. So at the last camp in December, they were playing a big poker tournament, and Nick ended up
Remember
winning.
when I broke that picture? That was directly before this tournament.
Yeah. So Nick actually won a private lesson with Charles Harriot.
Yes.
Unfortunately, he lives in Florida, and we are from Wisconsin.
Yep.
So it had to be over Zoom, because we did not get to it in time before they went home at that camp. But that was where today came in, and we scheduled it over Zoom. And again, the way he started it was Charles asked Nick, what do you want to work on?
Yeah.
And then you replied saddle entry because of me.
Yep.
And leg lock defenses for you.
Yes.
So that's what we did for an hour.
Yeah, and it was really cool. Him and his uke Natasha were able to expertly show us what to do and how to be a good uke and how to react. And he developed a leg lock flow / game system to work the defense and the entries.
Yeah. And leg locks are more complex than other moves, which is why you're not allowed to even touch them until you're a blue belt. So, I mean, besides ankle locks. And I think what I took most out of today was that Charles made us do, so if the move was like 4 separate parts, he would make us do part 1 like 3 to 5 times just to get that repetition. Like, okay, you're going to have hand placement here. Now reset. Now hand placement again. And then reset. Hand placement one more time. Okay, now let's move on to part 2 of this step. And then you do hand placement, and then you would switch. And then he just made you do that over and over and over to get the repetition. And then once you did each of the 3 or 4 parts of the move, like 5 times each, then you could put it all together. And then he could still tell you, like, okay, you just had to move your foot backwards just a little bit and things like that. So that's where that repetition came in and that extra individualized attention.
Yeah, which was awesome. Yeah. But yeah, the whole like game and flow that he was able to put together, I think would be super helpful. It's probably something that I'm going to incorporate.
Yeah, me too.
We have to teach other people.
I was really excited about it, though, because even before we started the private lesson, Nick was like, show me your saddle entry. Like, what do you do? And I was in combat base, and I was like, I don't know how to do it from here. I have to do it the only way that I know it. And I only know it from standing. And even he was like, well, he's probably going to have to just clean this up just a little bit. But then I was like, how the hell do I do it from my knees? And so today I learned that. So now I know how to do it more from my knees. And I, again, did so much repetition with it that I think I'll be able to incorporate it a little bit more.
Yeah, I learned how to do it from a headstand.
Yeah.
Which is super fun. But yeah, I learned a lot of good moves today.
I think I'm going to be able to practice it this week instead of passing guard.
Okay.
I'm going to try that.
It's a good plan.
So, watch out.
So, watch out.
I'm going to leg lock you.
Uh-huh.
It's going to be reaping, but that's okay.
It's okay in the gym, right? Yeah.
But,
oh, yeah.
So what was your favorite part about today's private lesson? Maybe anything, like a concept, a move, a conversation.
When you kept burning me with your leggings.
I'm sorry.
No, that was funny.
It's really cold in our basement, so I'm not wearing like normal spats. I'm wearing like actual warm, fuzzy leggings.
Yeah. And she was, and I was wearing, I specifically wore no spats or even my quarter length spats because normally I wear those to protect my knees, but I wanted over camera my white legs to show off against her leggings so that he could see where the legs were entangled and help us teach better. That was my thought. But then when she was throwing her leg through my legs with her leggings on, which that already sounds like a noodle. But her leggings were burning my leg. And I was like, oh, imagine like mini rope burn on the inside of your knee pit.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I remember I had to do that like 17 times.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, okay. I might feel that later.
I apologize.
No, it's fine.
I got that move down now, though.
Yeah, you do. That was a good move. No, I think I really liked how he put it in a game format, where it's like in chess, you move, your opponent moves, you move, your opponent moves, and if you can do drills like that, I think it's really good for both of you. So that way, otherwise it just turns into rolling and turns into people being dicks and not letting you do what you should do. Also, I've heard that that's a good way to play flow rolling jiu-jitsu, is move, counter move, move, counter move.
Yeah, that's kind of what Abro and I were doing yesterday. He asked me to be like his warm-up flow roll before he jumped right in, and I did it, and Abro is much larger than me. So
Is he?
We were just flowing, but that's kind of how we would do it, and that's how a flow is supposed to go. Is like I would attack, but not actually like go to the last part and like submit him, and then he would defend it, and then he would attack, and then I would defend it, and then I would attack, and that's just kind of how we just kept going for the whole like good. 4 minutes, and that's a good game. If you want to call it that.
Yeah.
And I know Ellie does flow class on Sundays where she does like a whole system. She will make it like, okay, we're going to go from here to here to here to here. And each of you are going to be having separate parts in the entire movement.
Right.
So,
yeah. And you have to react the right way.
Right.
For it to flow properly.
Right. And that's what we did today. And he showed us a bunch of different ways that, like with the 3 moves that he taught us, he showed us how you can incorporate it from where you are based on how your partner's moving. So if they defend it this way, then you're going to do it this. But if they defend it the other way, then you're going to do this. And then you can either go into this position or you can reset and go back to the regular position. And it was cool to see how it all came together. Because you can also think about how when you learn something, you're like, okay, cool, but like, when will I use this? So when you get it into like the system that we just did, you can actually put it into pieces and be like, oh, well, that's how I would use it. Instead of just getting to that position and be like, I feel like I've learned something from here before.
I've been there. I know there's something I can do from here.
Like me and bottom side control sometimes. I'm like, I know more than these moves. And I just can't think of what they are right now.
Yeah.
Like this week, week, I literally kept putting myself in bottom side control of people just so I could try to get out with the ghost escape. And I kept not getting out with the ghost escape. And then my brain just went blank for like almost every roll. Because I'm like, I just want to do the ghost escape. And I don't know how to do it right now because they're stuffing it. And I don't know what else to do. That was my entire week.
Oh, that's fun.
That was how I got in competition too. Like, I really want my firemen's. I can't get my firemen's. And then I just blanked on what else to do.
Yeah, I was talking about that with Ted and Kimura's, just in general. If you're committed too much to one move that you want all the time, it will come at a detriment to the rest of your game.
Yeah. Yep. And that's where the leg lock system that we did today was cool because he showed, like, if you can't get this one, then you can move around and do this one instead.
Yeah, options. Always options.
And if you can get your brain to flow in that capacity to be able to transition from this move to the next rather than just being like, well, I can only move from here to here, then your whole game's going to change.
Right. Yeah, because there's an infinite amount of possibilities.
Yeah.
For jiu-jitsu positions.
Bees start coming in. And as you get darker, it's just you are putting more and more and more of that together.
Yeah, and the drilling gets more succinct where you do the right drill instead of just like doing bench presses to get people off you or whatever.
Yeah.
Wow, excuse me.
I do remember looking at his stuff today. Like, he would show the move first, and it was, like I said, it was a couple different parts to it. And I'd look at it, and I'd be like, you know what, I actually know what he's doing. Rather, like, if I looked at that a year ago, I'd have been like, I'm not trying that.
It seems like a terrible idea.
I'm going to put my head on the mat right now and try to flick my leg up in the air. And, like, it's just crazy how repetition and things get you there. And I remember I was talking to a newer female in our gym this week, and she was just asking, like, how do I get better? And I was like, time. And I told her, I was like, I know that sounds like a really crappy response because I hated it when people told me that. But, like, that's literally all it comes down to is time and drills. Like, your mat time is what matters. Your mat time is what's going to make you better. And if you don't believe that, you're probably not going to stick around for very long.
Yeah, you got to commit to the mat time.
But I hated being told that. Like, when I would say, like, well, why am I so bad at this? And it's like, you just got to keep drilling it. And I'm like, but I just did it 20 times. And I still suck at it.
Do it 2,000 more times first. And then come back to me.
And I know Jeff Glover had said that, too, in his seminar. Where he was like, yeah, maybe if you guys have been doing this for 22 years, it'll look as good as this. But you haven't, so it won't.
Yeah, exactly that. That was really funny. And I was like, oh.
You're right.
Dang it.
And a private lesson won't help that. No. Because then even Charles left it today at the end of the podcast, at the end of the private lesson, and just told us, like, just keep drilling that. Just keep going through those motions, and eventually it'll sync up together. Yeah.
And it'll be more automatic.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, that's one thing that I love to do in private lessons is drill stuff. And then, I help them drill it right.
You prefer in private lessons that someone brings an uke, right?
Either way. You can. Most of the times, you can bring an uke. But other times, I'm totally fine with being the uke. Because I understand the response. Because that's the other thing, too. Like, if you get a bad uke, that's not helpful for anybody.
Yeah.
Because you've all been to a class where, you get a bad uke that doesn't know what they're supposed to do. And then...
I'm a bad uke. I hate being uke.
I'm just talking about drilling partners.
He's talking about me.
Or you're trying to do a move and they're, like, really trying to defend it when we're just drilling. Or they're like, no, I would just attack you like this. And it's like, well, that's not the move we're doing right now.
Right.
Just let me practice this thing.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
My problem in beginner class that I've been noticing, and I'm really trying to cut it out because I'm doing it a lot, is I get super excited about a move, and I'll let my partner drill it a couple times, and they'll be like, yeah, but if that doesn't work, we can do this instead. And then I'm like, but that's not what we're doing right now. Maybe he'll show it. And I do that all the time, like literally every single class. I'm like,
man.
Yeah. So even just knee on belly this week, I was like, yeah, but like if you have one of your arms taken away, you can't do that. So like maybe if they were holding your arm, you could do this. And then my dad came in and was like, I'm showing that next. And I'm like, he's showing that next. Let's not do that right now.
Yes. Yeah, there's a reason that instructors break it down move by move. And if you're both like purple and brown, okay, you can play with it. But like...
I get excited.
I know. That's fun.
But I'm actually very nervous for teaching that class because I don't know how I'm supposed to teach for an hour.
Oh, you'll be fine.
I can show like 2 moves and then I'm like, okay, I'm done.
You can have them drill it and do guard pass drill for 30 minutes.
Ooh, that's a great idea.
I'm just kidding. No, just kidding. But yeah.
What should I teach, guys? I think I get to choose.
How to be undefeated in Nogi.
So fireman takedowns for everyone.
Oh my goodness.
All the 30-year-olds are going to leave.
Yeah.
Anyone 30 and up, they're going to be like, I'm out.
In Nogi.
Yeah. That's the most fun.
You get more grips in gi.
Yeah, but you can yank their wrist down. They do not expect it.
You can do that way better in the gi than you can in Nogi.
That's true. But I'm teaching Nogi, so I have to improvise.
You'll be fine.
Anyway.
Yeah. So, what do you think about private lessons now, like as a whole?
I thought it was cool. Like I said, I liked the individualized attention. I was a little nervous about it because I knew going in, I don't know leg locks very well. I knew I was going to be, for lack of a better word, criticized the whole time because those two are experts at leg locks and you have more experience with it than I did. So I knew I was the black sheep of the group today. So I went in like just telling myself like, it's okay. That's what this is for. They're going to make it better.
Yeah.
But I had to like coach myself through that instead of just being like, it's a leg lock. I'm never going to do it. Because now I will. But the individualized attention was very helpful. And I appreciated him being so flexible and doing it over Zoom with us. Yeah.
Yeah, that was super awesome. I learned a lot of great details.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what, like, seminars and private lessons are all about, those details.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I said earlier, you can see it click, but every private lesson that I've given someone, there's a moment in that session where they're like, that's what I need to add to my game.
Yep. Did you have that moment today?
Yes.
I did too.
Yes, for sure. I had a couple of those moments where I was like, yeah.
Yeah. The biggest one I got was when he said, and this is, here you go, guys, listen to this. So when you're getting leg locked and someone has both of your legs tangled up and you don't know how to get out, typically what you're going to do, what you've probably learned, is like give the boot, try to stand up, try to attack their arms, like do whatever you can. And what I got out of today is that if you can't get that leg out that you're trying so hard for, that means that they're probably really working on that leg. So just take out the other one and then start backstepping and start moving around with that leg and loosening up the one that they have tight. Because if you're trying to get a leg out and they're not letting you, that's because they're trying to attack that leg, which means they're not trying to attack the other leg.
Yeah.
Which means you should start fighting.
With that leg.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, whenever somebody is focused on one part of your body, the rest of your body typically is available for you to employ.
Don't forget you have legs.
Right. Don't forget you have legs and or the whole rest of your other body.
Yeah.
Body? Yeah.
I think that's my problem when I get leg locked, though, is I'm so focused on the leg they're attacking, which is not a bad thing, but you also have 3 other limbs to be worrying about, rather than just being like, let me get my foot out.
Yeah. That's my main Americana defense, is when people commit to the Americana, I move the entire rest of my body instead of just my arm that I'm trying not to get Americana.
Yeah.
And then people are like, I can't hold him down. Well, it's like, well, I kind of baited you with Americana so that you had to focus on everything on this one arm, and I moved the rest of my body around my shoulder.
Right. And that's what it's kind of all about, learning the game. Playing around with it.
It's always a game now.
So how can you, I guess, compare or differentiate the private lesson that you had with Charles Harriot versus Jeff Glover?
Well, one was in person, one was over the internet.
Was it easier or harder over the internet?
It was a little bit harder.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely could have gotten more details probably in person, but it wasn't like there was a lack of details over the internet.
Right.
But in person, like somebody can grab you and put you where you should be. And they can like walk around you and be like, okay, that side and that side looks good.
Right.
In video, it's just front facing.
Right.
Let's see if it feels better if you do that.
Get closer to the wall so we can see your foot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like we had to keep switching. Every time he shrimped, he would push me off camera. And we had to, every time that it was like his turn versus my turn, we would have to flip flop sides so that they could see. And
yeah.
So yeah, I get that difficulty level.
Right. But other than that, I think it was just different topics we went over. And what we did with Charles was very tightly connected. What I did with Jeff Glover, we had a little bit more time, but we had 3 people asking questions about different topics. So it wasn't as connected. Okay. It was more just like concepts or things that he likes to do from certain spots. Okay. Which is still good. And it was still great stuff.
I like the full circle type of stuff, though. Like when we're going through random moves in class and they make all the moves about that move. Like, we're going to start in this position and then we're going to make the entire class based on either how to attack this position or defend this position. Yeah. And I think that's really good. I think it gets a little confusing, especially for newer people, when you start teaching mount, but then you start teaching back as well. And, like, I get that they work together, but sometimes they don't. And with different things that you can move and transition and everything, like the transition's fine, but like actually attacking or defending from both positions are 2 completely different things. So I think it's better when instruction is based on just like one position.
Yeah, that's what I like to call systems versus like moves, because you can get a position. So a lot of times I teach it from side control. When I'm attacking the far side arm, I get one grip and then I say, there's typically this response, or this response. And here's what we do with response A. This is this move. If they respond B, we do this. If they respond with C, we do this. And then we drill those moves specifically at one point at a time. And then I say, okay, now I'm going to give you one of the responses and see if you respond correctly to finish that move.
Yeah.
And then we go through that, and then I say, that was a system from this position if you can get to this position. And then they're like, oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It all just clicks together.
Mm-hmm.
And that was what was nice about the fire and water camp at the last one, is that the instructors kind of organized it on a wing to make it all tie together. Like, I know Charles Harriot went last after Josh and John Friedland went, but he had something completely different planned. But because he had watched theirs two first, he immediately was like, so I had something, but I'm not going to show it anymore because it's totally different. So we're going to do something that ties into what they did. And it was very cool to be able to tie together 4.5 hours of seminars.
Oh, yeah.
To be one thing.
And my brain was not mush yet.
Yeah.
For some reason.
But yeah, private lessons, they're very helpful, and they will add to your game significantly, in my opinion now.
Oh, yeah.
Which I feel like I knew, but I have a deeper understanding after today. And I'm sure anyone who has worked with Nick or plans to work with Nick in the future will also realize that too, because I notice when I roll with them.
Yeah, I noticed when I roll with them too.
Freaking Michael.
I teach them things, and then they like use it on me. I'm like, I love it.
Yeah.
Keep doing that.
Yeah. I love when I tell him that I rolled with someone that he's worked with, and I'm just like, he omoplated me today. I didn't know he knew what an omoplata was. And Nick is like, yeah, we've been working on that. And I'm like, okay, well, next time I won't let him get there, because now he knows it.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Or it just makes me better for having to get out of it, right?
Yes. A rising tide raises all ships.
Yes.
One of my favorite jiu-jitsu quotes. It's not about jiu-jitsu in general, but I apply it all the time.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, if you end up like working with stuff and getting better at it, that just has to make other people better at defending and improving their game too.
Mm-hmm.
I actually even told a couple of people this week what my game is and what I do and the 3 moves that I base my entire jiu-jitsu off of. And if you can stop any of those 3 things, you've probably crumbled my entire game. And I told like probably 5 or 6 different people about it this week. And one of them even said, they're like, I can't believe you just told us that. And I was like, well, I need to do something else. I need to keep doing different things.
Yeah. What are those things? You want to say them out loud for me?
Nope.
Okay. You got to come to class.
Nope. Ted got it. And Michael got it.
Mm-hmm.
And...
You want to tell me?
You know.
I'm just kidding.
Couple people got it.
So, after...
And can I expand on that really quick? So then I rolled with Michael on yesterday, I think. And I was in one of those positions, and he was trying to attack it, but he didn't know how, and I looked at him, and I was just like, hey, Michael, do you remember I told you this is one of the 3 things? Do you remember what I told you I do right after this? And he was like, yeah, I do, and I'm trying to figure out how to stop it, and I don't know how to stop it.
That's fun. Awareness is the first step.
Yep, but I stopped him, like, while he was in the middle of it. I was like, Michael, we just talked about this. I just told you this is what I do, and you know what I'm about to do, so stop it. And he was like, yes, yep, I know what you're going to do. I'm going to stop it. It was fun.
That's pretty ambitious.
And he didn't stop it.
Yeah.
I still did it. And he was like, dang it, I knew you were going to.
That's when you know you got good technique, is when you specifically are going for something, they know you're going for it, and they still cannot stop it.
Yeah.
Yes. But I was going to ask you now, knowing what you know now and knowing how you feel now, if anybody asked you about private lessons, if they're beneficial or not, what would you say to them?
I would say, yeah. I mean, so I think that private lessons are a little pricey. I mean, jiu-jitsu is kind of an expensive sport as is. You're paying $100+ for a uniform, and then you're paying your tuition fees, and then you're probably paying for medical bills because you're going to get checked out a lot.
And then you're paying for a therapist because it's depressing.
And you're taking a lot of time out of your schedule to go train and make a better fit, healthier self for yourself. So jiu-jitsu is a very time-consuming and expensive sport as is. So adding on private lessons is definitely something that you would need to make the pros and cons list about for yourself. But if you're thinking about it, if you have the means to do it, if you have the funds that you can do it, you should absolutely do it because it'll focus on you and you only. It won't focus on what everyone else is doing. It won't focus on what your instructor wants to show you. It won't focus on anything else. Just what do you want to work on? What are you struggling in? What do you want to get better at? And so I think that can expand your game exponentially. And I would say that it's extremely worth it. but they are pricey, so you have to know that you are really devoted and motivated to get better.
Yeah, once you've committed to the journey of jiu-jitsu, then that's a good time to start thinking about private lessons. Mm-hmm. If you're still on the fence, if you're like, I don't know if I'm going to stick around or not.
Yeah.
It's not a good time.
Right.
But it's super beneficial to learn just progression of moves, to learn positional dominance, to learn how to move from position to position, not get lost in the transition, learn submission mechanics, learn when to finish things or when to move on. Mm-hmm. All those little things that in jiu-jitsu, like I said, that aha moment, that click, you're going to get a lot more of those in a private lesson than you are going to in a seminar or in a regular class.
Yeah. And we've done an episode on seminars and how beneficial those are. And I think those are absolutely worth the money. Maybe not for the first year. I'm not gonna go back on that at all, because I really honestly did not think seminars were worth it for the first year. And I still stand by that.
And I would say seminars do teach a bit more highlight really stuff.
Yes.
Most times.
But we did a whole episode on seminars. If you haven't listened to it, you should go listen to it. And how great they are. I'm sure we'll do another one in the future. But private lessons are like seminars amplified.
Yes.
And again, it's very attention focused on you.
Yeah.
And they're very worth it as long as you make it.
Yep. Yeah, and it's always great because you can just bring up the problem that you've been facing and you're rolling for the last couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. So like if you are getting stuck in a certain spot or you're getting tapped out from a certain submission, then you can say, hey, let's take a lesson on the Kimura. What am I doing wrong on Kimura, or how do I get out of it, or whatever. And we can completely break it down and teach you just little things that, okay, the goal of the Kimura is this. We defend it by making sure this doesn't happen. Then we're in a safe spot. Then we can start to unravel ourselves and stuff like that.
It's also pretty rewarding, too, when you hear them say that, like, you did that great, or you did that perfectly, or if you messed it up the first time and then you do it right the second time, they're like, oh my gosh, like, look at how far you've come in just one rep type of thing. And, like, everyone likes to feel good. Everyone likes words of affirmation. So it honestly is a pretty cool and unique feeling to have this expert who's now teaching you something that you want to learn tell you that you're doing it perfectly. Because if you're not doing it perfectly, at least one rep by the time you're done with a private lesson, you probably weren't listening very well.
Yeah, probably.
So the words of affirmation.
Or you had a bad instructor.
Yeah. Words of affirmation are very important in it, in my opinion, too.
Yeah, I think it boosts your confidence a bit.
Yeah.
And it tells you, okay, if I do this in live rolling, that this is a good spot for me to be in. Mm-hmm. A lot of times you see stuff in class, you do it in rolling, and then you're like, is this how it's supposed to be?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it was something like this. What am I missing?
It's cool. And then it's also fun. I mean, I haven't rolled since we did the private lesson today, but it's cool too when you learn something that you've worked on with someone specifically, and then you go and hit it in a live roll, and then you can go tell that person, like, oh my gosh, I did this thing. Yeah. Because I know he gets that a lot from his students who he private lessons with. That came out very weird. Who you teach private lessons to, they've told you, like, oh yeah, I hit this thing. And you're like, that's freaking awesome. Yes. And I know I've been working on something very specific with Brett this week. And I hit it twice, and I was super stoked, and I went up to Brett, like, running, and I was like, Brett, I did the thing! Mm-hmm. And it's cool. It's a cool feeling.
Yeah, it's super fun. And it will boost your progression in jiu-jitsu when you get private lessons. Mm-hmm. Just like competition does, just like seminars do, just like showing up to open mat does. Yeah. It will, the more mat time you have, the better, and the more specific drilling you do, the better you'll get.
Mm-hmm. I agree. But I'm hungry now, so I want to go.
Okay. Well, Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year. Next week we'll be talking about next competition, what his successes were and what his failures were. And then we'll have 2 special guests on talking about that first stripe feeling. And we have a bunch of stuff coming up. We have some IBJJF things and a couple other tournaments throughout the year. We're going to be traveling a bit this year. We just have lots of stuff coming up. So
yes, it's gonna be a great year.
Yes,
for BJJ Married.
Woo! Happy New Year, guys! We're getting merch soon too, so that'll be fun.
Yes. Okay, thanks, guys.
All right, bye.